So we get comments on a regular basis with people questioning our title, Live Simple, Live Free. And they say, you're not living simple. We just recently got a comment that someone said, you're not living simple. You have, oh, this is when we were talking about furnishing this Florida house and all the stuff we have to buy for the house. And he said, you're not living simple. Not only do you have 2 houses, but you got to buy all this stuff for 2 houses, and you got a couple vehicles, and you got a motorcycle. That's not simple living. And then we just very recently got another comment that someone was commenting on our simple living, and she said, stop bragging about owning 2 houses. She said, most Floridians can't even afford 1 house. So let's talk about that. Hey everybody, I'm Bill.
And I'm Elizabeth. Live simple.
Live free.
Yeah.
So, live simple. What does that mean? I think when most people hear that, initially they're thinking live simple means live a minimalist lifestyle. You know, 1 chair, 1 plate, 1 set of silverware.
And there are people that enjoy living a very minimalist lifestyle. Yeah.
As in living in a tiny house, which we used to do, or living in a van. You only have the bare essentials. That's not at all what we mean by living simple.
Yeah.
Living simple basically means live below your means.
Yes.
It means don't buy all kinds of superfluous stuff that you don't really need, especially if you're going to use debt to do it.
Yeah.
You only buy something if you can afford it, to write a check for it, or to pay cash for it. You don't ever use debt.
Yeah.
And so we have found that over the long run, living debt-free actually allows us to buy more stuff and to have more stuff.
But even at that, I don't want to have more than I really feel like I need. And so we're still trying to be kind of careful about that. Even this second house is, I love it to pieces, but it's not a big fancy house.
No.
Not at all.
So living debt-free actually allows us to have more. Well, how can that be? You can't go out and buy a new car because you're not going to put debt on it and that sort of thing. We can't right now, but eventually we can. If you work the plan, eventually you can. Now, I used to teach a seminar about getting out of debt, and my seminar teaches you how to get out of debt in 7 years.
Including mortgage.
Including a
everything.
Mortgage. And then invest the money that you used to spend on debt payments. And I used to teach this seminar all over, in churches all over the place, and I have a recording of it. In fact, I have a recording of it here for you guys to see. It's 4 videos, a series of 4 videos. But I want to show you a short excerpt from that seminar, and it's basically talking about the whole philosophy of living debt-free and why it's better in the long run. So here you go. The traditional debt model, the way most people think about debt, and this is where I really wish I had a graphic for you, but it's pretty much understood that debt is acceptable as long as you keep it under control, right? You got to keep your debt manageable. So people would come to me and they would be way too far in debt, and they would want to get out of debt. But okay, so they have a 30-year mortgage. They've been in the house 2 years, so they got 28 years left on the mortgage. So their idea would be that they want to get out of this excessive debt and bring it up to the point where it's manageable. And they're not talking about eliminating debt, they're just talking about making it manageable. And they figure that, 28 years later, the house will be paid for, and they'll be out of debt, and they'll be able to retire with no debt, no issues. But that's not what happens, because they still have the mentality that debt is okay. And several things happen. First, average American sells his house and buys a new one every 7.2 years. So that means every time they do it, basically they get another 30-year mortgage, and it just keeps going on and on and on. And also, because they're used to living with a certain amount of manageable debt, they never stop doing that, and they never get out of debt. And they never, when it's time to retire, they can't, because they still have too much debt to pay. They can't. They have debt payments that are just. Anyway, so the the system that I'm going to teach you, take the same 28 years left on the average mortgage, and you apply this system and you get out of debt, completely out of debt, not just get to the point of manageable debt. You get completely out of debt in 7 years. And then think about it for a minute. If you're making mortgage, or if you're making any kind of debt payments, add it all together in your head, just mortgage payment, all of your credit card payments, car payments, maybe student loans, all of those kinds of things. How much are you paying every month on your debt? For most people, it's anywhere from $1,500 a month to $3,000 a month. If you were completely debt-free, right now you're already spending that money. So once you get debt-free, you don't then go hog wild and expand your standard of living. You keep spending that same money that you were spending on debt, but instead you invest it. And if you can invest several $1,000s a month, by the end of that 28-year mortgage, when normally the other way it would have just been paid off, instead you have a nest egg worth $1.2 million. And that's using the exact same paycheck that you're using right now, just using it in a different way, using it in a more efficient way to get out of debt as fast as you can, and then use the money that you were using for debt payments to invest instead. So that's just kind of an overview of the whole thing. And so we're going to spend the next couple hours talking about the details of how all of that works. So here's our system. First, get out of debt, completely out of debt, everything, including your mortgage. And then after you're out of debt, then you invest. You take the money that you were spending on debt payments and you invest. So that's the basic philosophy of my system. And like I said, you can go and watch the entire seminar, 4 videos, and I will put a link down below in the description so that you can find that. And this is doable by just about anybody.
I think so.
And so where are we on this chart? Well, we are debt-free and have been debt-free for quite a few years. And now we are right about here.
Like, ta-da!
We have this one house in Florida that is our first investment beyond the house that we own, our home in Virginia. So by living the debt-free lifestyle and saving all of the money we used to pay on mortgage and all those other things.
And lots of other things, yeah.
We were able to first pay off our house in Virginia, which was the first major milestone. And then a little while later, we were able to buy this house in Florida as our first investment.
Yeah, because the house in Virginia, we didn't consider an investment. You have to have a home to live in, one way or the other.
Yeah. Now, when we first bought this house here in Florida, we had been trying to snowbird down here just to get away from the cold for her. And it just, if you've been watching for a while, it just didn't work. We kept having all kinds of mechanical problems and all different things.
And it's very hard in Florida to find some place to stay in an RV.
Yeah, we discovered that in order to get an RV reservation, you had to be there. You had to do it 1 year in advance, and you had to be there the day that it was 1 year in advance, because if you were an hour late, they were all full again.
Yeah.
And then you could stay in most places only 2 weeks, so then you'd have to do it again to make a reservation somewhere else for another 2 weeks. Right. It became unworkable.
Another thing too is people talk about Airbnbs, which are wonderful. We stayed in Airbnb when we were repairing this house, but even in the north here, which we're going to talk about is less expensive, the 3 months that I was minimally hoping to get out of the cold would have still run us somewhere upwards of $7,000 just to stay at the Airbnb.
So when we first bought this house, a lot of people thought that we were doing this instead of RVing in order to snowbird. And a lot of people really criticized us for that. A lot of people were very negative, and they said, there's no way that buying a house is going to be cheaper than taking an RV to Florida. And if our goal was just to snowbird, they're absolutely right.
Yeah, to actually buy a house, make payments and all that stuff on it, of course that would cost more than trying to figure out some way to snowbird otherwise.
But you see, they didn't see, I want to say, behind the scenes. They didn't know the financial plan that we're working, which is this debt-free plan. Because we've been debt-free for a while and we've been saving the money we used to waste on mortgages, we had money that we had to invest.
Yeah, eventually it actually started to accumulate.
Right.
Because we keep our regular lifestyle pretty simple. We just We don't have car payments. We don't. I mean, it's simple.
Well, in fact, look at our car.
We'll have to show you. Yes.
I'm going to show you. This is our '02 Chevy Cavalier. It still runs fine, but as you know, if you watch your channel, occasionally we have mechanical issues with it. Look at the paint job. It's ugly.
It's my little sweet beater. I'm telling you. But the thing has been pretty faithful.
Now, with the income that we've got now, we could have gone out and bought a new car. But then we wouldn't have been able to invest in a property. And a car is not an investment. A car is an expense.
Especially if you buy a new one, you were going to lose huge amounts of value just driving off the lot.
So we made sacrifices in driving these old cars to stay out of debt so that we could let the money accumulate so that we could invest.
When we were living at Fort Knox, the people next door bought the most beautiful van. Oh my goodness, it was gorgeous.
Camper van kind of thing.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. And I was just thinking, oh wow, because as usual, I had a little beater car. And but the time came when we were able to buy a house, and so we went and we got a really good deal in a house there. And I was talking to my neighbor. We were good friends, and she was so upset. She said we tried to get a mortgage, and we just have too much debt
because of the van that they just bought.
And
she said if we hadn't bought the van, we could have bought a house.
And her van payments were higher than my house payments. You know, and so it depends on the perspective, you know, that you really want to have about things. So, yes.
So now we decided instead of trying to RV, we're going to work our plan and invest in our first real true investment since we're debt free by buying a house in Florida, which just also happens to allow us to snowbird.
Yes, it gets me out. Honestly, folks, I have interstitial lung disease, which I'm trusting the Lord to heal, but I cannot breathe in cold air. It's unbelievable.
As soon as it hits about 40 degrees, she can't go outside.
I'm gasping. So getting into the warmth over the course of the winter has not been a luxury. It's a kind of a necessity.
Yeah, here in North Florida, it gets cold too. There's like 5 days a year that goes below 40 degrees.
I'll say this again. Last Christmas, people were saying, don't come down to Florida. It's been unusually cold in the north. It's 20 degrees this Christmas. And that would be a little chilly. I'd have to be staying out of that. But where I was, it was 2 degrees.
Yeah.
So it's very relative.
So anyway, when we bought this house, we've never really revealed to you any of the numbers on this house before. But we're talking about finances. We're talking about our financial plan here. So we decided we'd go ahead and do that. When we first started looking, we were looking further south. You know, it's warmer and all of that. But we discovered that anything from about Gainesville south, the houses started at about $300,000 to $350,000.
Or if you get closer to the Gulf or closer to the Atlantic,
right,
then they start getting obviously a lot more expensive.
Now, we could have bought a house like that. We could have invested in a house like that, but it would take us a number more years of saving before we could do that.
Right. That would be a little more hairy to be able to, plan on paying it off.
So we started looking in the north because we discovered that houses are a lot cheaper here in the north. So we took a week. We've talked about this before, but we took a week and we came down here on a reconnaissance trip.
Never done that before in our lives.
It was so cool. We went to Pensacola and we slowly made our way from Pensacola to Jacksonville over about a week. And every day we'd drive about 50 or 60 miles into the next town. We'd get a hotel and we'd get there, early afternoon because we didn't drive that far. And then we would just drive around town, checking it out, thinking, is this the place? Is this the town?
And then even if we weren't staying in a town, we'd go through them as we were traveling along and just thinking, what do we think about it here?
And it was a really unique experience because any time in the past we've ever moved before, there's been a reason, either a job or we had to go there for family, like we moved to Virginia because we had to, our son Barry was there and we had to find a house where my dad could move in with us. Right. There was always a reason that we moved somewhere.
Especially military all those years.
But this time, we had no agenda. We had no reason to move anywhere because of our income online on YouTube and Thrive Life. We could live anywhere in the world, literally.
That's just as long as there's internet.
As long as there's internet and still work our income.
Pretty wild.
So it was really cool to just drive and look in all these different towns and discover, is this it? Is this it? And we drove into the one where we live now, which we're not going to tell you, but still. We fell in love with it.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful little town. And the housing in this area, as we started looking, we discovered that you can buy houses in this area that have been newly remodeled for starting at about $80,000.
Well, if they're really newly remodeled, you might be getting closer to 100. But you can get ones that are going to be very fix-upable or cute and little for about 80.
Yeah, well, even
or
less if you're ready to do some renovation, which I was not.
He's been doing plenty of that.
So you may remember when we came into this town and we looked around at different ones, and most of the ones that we looked at had been newly re-renovated, and they arranged. They were all under 100,000. But the one that we got, the one that we fell in love with, we actually, after some haggling and negotiation.
Well, the only reason that they were willing to come down just a little bit on what they were asking was because we discovered the damage under the house that had to be fixed.
The rotten beams that Barry and I fixed.
There was cost involved in getting everything fixed, so they understood that.
So a lot of people have been wondering and asking what we spent for this house. So
I guess we'll just kind of let you know. They were very happy with the price, and we were very happy with the price. So we spent
$115,000
on this house. Yeah.
Now, half of that money came from our plan, our financial plan of being debt free and saving the money.
We've been saving and saving.
We've been saving for a long time, but we didn't have enough to buy a house cash. And then you remember, I guess it's got like 2 years ago now, Barry and I.
Is it really? Oh my goodness, the summer before
this past.
Yeah.
Barry and I renovated that house in Virginia, and we flipped it in 5 months. We did a complete renovation and flipped it in 5 months. He and I split the profit on that, and that gave us enough to add to what we had already saved, that we were able to buy this house cash.
We were also very blessed because it wasn't totally cash, because we were very blessed that we have gotten to really know a nice bank up in Virginia. Because if we tried to get a mortgage down here for under $100,000, they won't even talk to you, from everything we've been able to gather. So this bank had gotten to know us. We'd worked with them on the flip house, and so they were willing to work with us on a small mortgage. I told the guy at the bank from the very beginning, I said, now I'm going to pay this off as fast as I can, so be prepared for that. And for them to have some closing costs and get some interest and then turn around and get their money back, they were really cool about it. So we had a small mortgage that we were able to get.
One of the golden rules of living debt free is the reason that you don't, there's two reasons that you don't use debt. One is because everything costs you more because of the interest that you have to pay. And the other thing is, even if you can get an interest-free loan, here's the key: never promise away future earnings.
That's right. We don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Right. Now, we got a mortgage on this, but you're promising away future earnings. No, we knew that we were going to be getting a good-sized tax return.
Yes, we knew about how much it was going to be.
Yeah, and we had already earned that money. I wasn't hoping to earn it.
Yeah.
If you promise away future earnings and you lose your job, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
We knew that money was coming in because it had already been earned. So we got a small mortgage to finish off, because we didn't have quite $115,000 in cash at the time. So we got this small mortgage. And how many payments did we make on that mortgage?
I think before we got the income tax return back, I think I made 2 payments. Of course, they were cute little payments, but I made 2 payments. I think the third payment was about the time that our income tax return came in, and I went and paid the house off.
Yeah. So, I say that we bought it cash. We really did, but we really didn't because we had a mortgage for 2 months. But it was just a timing issue.
Yeah.
Because we knew that money was coming in from our tax return.
And we felt like that we should buy the house when we did, because it had honestly, I had fallen in love with it the first time we saw it. But it had honestly sold twice. I was totally giving up. I knew it was going to be gone. Both times the sale fell through for some reason. We didn't even know about that.
It sold twice and then it fell through. It sold, fell through, sold, fell through, right. Then it came on the market again when we bought it.
Right, and I really felt like that we were getting a very good price for it, and it was not going to last very long. So it was worth to me, since I knew I would have the money when the income tax return came back, it was worth it to me to make the arrangements and have a very short amount of time where we paid a little bit of interest, but then it's paid off.
So bottom line with this house, we're not comparing it to RVing. because with an RV, you have to maintain an RV, a trailer, and a truck or something to pull it, or a Class A or Class C RV.
Some kind of a motorized vehicle.
You have to maintain that, and that's an expense. It's going to depreciate, and then you're going to have all, you know, the gas at 6 miles to the gallon to get down here, and then you have to pay the rent for RV parks and that sort of thing.
Or come up with $7,000 for an Airbnb.
This house is totally different because this is working our plan. This is our investment,
Yeah.
working towards our future. And because it just happens to be in Florida, it also kills two birds with one stone because it's our snowbird house basically for free because we already made the investment.
Yeah.
Now, so also a lot of people said it's going to cost you a lot to maintain that house on a monthly basis. And yes, there is some expense.
It's not very much.
Yeah, but still, homeowners insurance down here is much more expensive because of the hurricanes.
Hurricanes, yes.
Car insurance, for some reason, is more expensive. That sort of thing. We have to maintain
Well, there's taxes.
the taxes, of course, and
Yeah.
all that. We have to maintain internet service down here year-round so that our security cameras work, so we can watch it up in Virginia. We can still see our house. So there are definitely additional monthly expenses. However, this is the cool thing. We changed our residency to Florida.
Which is why our car insurance is down here. We
Yeah.
officially switched everything
So we're
over.
paying more car insurance and that sort of thing. But why did we do that? Florida is one of the few states that has no state income tax. In Virginia, we were paying state income tax, and also in Virginia, we were paying personal property tax every
yeah.
year on our vehicles. And by cutting out those two expenses, we actually saved more expense than it costs us to maintain this house on a monthly basis.
Yeah, it's
So by switching our residency to Florida, we're actually ahead. It costs us less when we save more money, even though we have a second house that we have to maintain the expenses.
now that we are doing honestly before somebody asks about this, we are being very careful to do everything straight up front honest. You have to be in Florida at least 6 months and 1 day. You have to switch everything over to Florida. That has to be our official residence, our main home, and we have done all of that. And I'm not super thrilled about having to be away from the kids and grandkids a little bit more than we thought, but I think in the long run, this makes us much more stable financially.
Right.
And we're still being very careful with the money, but I'm usually able to save enough from what we would normally have paid out of state taxes to more than taking care of everything that we need to down here. And compared to paying mortgage on a house, it's still a fraction of the money, you know. Right. You still have to pay taxes and insurance. You still, there's things you have to pay for. And so far, I just want to say this one thing. We've discovered that electricity is becoming kind of better for us because we did have the wood stove. We've got the wood stove in Virginia. That's been wonderful. But we aren't staying anywhere during the high energy cost time of the year. We're not down here when we need the most air conditioning, and we're not in Virginia when there needs to be extra help with the heat.
Right.
Although, like I said, we do have the wood stove.
When we come down here in the winter, we leave our house in Virginia set at 40 degrees just to keep the pipes from freezing.
Yeah, make sure the pipes don't
So
freeze.
it doesn't cost us a fraction of what it would if we were living there and heating it, to 70.
And when we are in Virginia during the summer, we keep this house at 85 degrees.
And we have
And
2 dehumidifiers.
we keep
in the house.
dehumidifiers going because humidity is such an issue. I thought it was a lot of issue in Virginia. It's even more of an issue in Florida. And so by not trying to cool this house under like 85 degrees, that does not add up to a whole lot either.
Now, I want to revisit the the comment where the woman said you're bragging about 2 houses and most Floridians can't even afford 1 house. So I want to talk a little bit about our income. Now, obviously there are people who are low income that are struggling to survive.
We struggled for a long time.
And we completely understand because we were there for many years. And so I'm not talking to you if you are in that category. The people that I want to talk to are people with an average American income. I believe the average household income is $65,000 a year.
$3 throughout all across America.
Yeah. Now, you know, in the crash of '08, we lost everything. We had our home and 3 rental properties. We lost it all. We were struggling below poverty line for a while to
For
survive.
quite a while. Yeah.
Our income has since recovered because of YouTube and because of Thrive Life, and I'm now starting to get my military retirement pay. So,
He had to be 60 before we started getting that.
so are we rich? By no means.
Oh, no.
We're just an average income. We're maybe a little bit above the annual average, but we are still just considered middle class. And there are an
Absolutely.
awful lot of people with the same income that we have. In fact, when we first started talking about this house, I was absolutely shocked at how many of you told us that you also have a second home in Florida or South Carolina or something. Yeah, I live in Minnesota, but I have a house on the coast of Georgia.
Or you live in Florida, but you've gotten a place up north so that you can get out of the heat.
Right.
It's kind of a snowbird
Right.
in reverse kind of thing.
Dozens and dozens and dozens of you told us that, and it made me feel better that we're not some,
We're really not trying to be greedy,
no.
Oh,
But
goodness.
it's a very common thing for people to own 2 houses.
especially as they get older and the cold becomes an issue or the heat.
Right. So, can you do what we've done? If you have an average income and the average amount of debt, then yes, you can. If you work our plan and watch my seminars, work the plan, it's based on averages. It's based on the average amount of income and the average amount of debt that Americans are carrying. And so the numbers do work, but you have to be diligent and patient to make it work.
And if you work it and you can get yourselves out of debt, maybe even up to that point where the only thing left is a vehicle payment and the house, even starting at that point, you have to have the vision and you have to be diligent to not use debt anymore.
Right.
And sometimes there's the best excuses and reasons to use debt, stuff that seems so important. But we also want to give God a chance to be able to bless us at times when, maybe suddenly there is some kind of a big repair that needs to be done. You have to start even just at that point to say, I'm not doing this anymore. Then you get the car paid off, and then you have to make a decision about what you're going to do about a future vehicle. And then you get your house paid off, and you have to make a decision about what your future is going to be. If you don't stick to it, it's not going to do you any good in the long run.
Right. So, what is our plan for the future? Obviously, because of our age, we're not going to last 28 years to,
I don't think so.
build $1.2 million in retirement.
Besides, that's just not important to me.
That's not important. That's not the issue. But the point is that we are now out of debt, and we are now in a situation where if we had to retire on just our Social Security and my military retirement, which isn't a whole lot because it was National Guard, not active duty.
Well, he was active duty, and then he retired National Guard.
Yeah, I was 11 years in the active duty and 13 years in the National Guard. So I'm actually a retired National Guardsman. But if we had to survive just on that income, we could do it because we're completely debt-free, and that was my main goal.
And we're debt-free where the houses have really relatively low taxes. I mean,
Yeah.
it really is relatively low taxes.
And if need be, we could start renting one of these houses out for additional income.
Yeah, that's another thing we'll probably talk about, why we're not renting one or the other of them out right now.
Yeah.
But we could.
So another issue is, I've been doing videos recently about the end times prophecy and the hard, difficult times coming up. We really believe that one of the ways to prepare is to get yourself out of debt as fast as you can, so that in all the financial turmoil coming up, if you're debt free, you'll weather it a lot easier, a lot faster.
Yeah.
Now, can you get out of debt completely, including your mortgage, before all of that happens? I don't know. But every debt that you pay off will make it that much easier for you to survive the financial turmoil if and when it comes.
Besides, you know what? We don't know exactly the timing of things.
Right.
And we did a video one time about that. We have to live in two worlds. One is where, yes, we realize that things can start happening here, and we want to be spiritually and mentally and emotionally prepared for that. But the other is to live our life and to be as good as stewards with our life as we can. And it's kind of like planting a tree. The very best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago or today. And the very best time to get yourselves out of debt is back years ago or today, because if you don't start, then you're never going to get there, and you don't know how things might work out. You might find yourselves being able to get things straightened out. There's an older woman one time that was wishing she could go to nursing school, and she was talking to a grandson, and she said, I'd love to, but I can't. My goodness, I'd be 68 years old by the time I got done with nursing school. And the little boy said, well, Grandma, aren't you going to be 68 years old then anyway? So just don't give up. Get started and hang in there, because like he just said, any debt that you can get rid of is going to be beneficial. Something else that has helped us is that we really have not spent a lot of money even having to get the furniture into this place. It's been fun looking for used things, and we did save up some money. Once the house was paid for, I could start kind of saving again, and I saved up some because I did want to get new bed mattresses, and we got a like 50% off deal on this couch.
Yeah, this couch is wonderful. It was a package deal. It was this couch, 3-seat couch, and a 2-seat love seat. And our son Barry found it was 50% off because it was a discontinued model. So we split it, and we got an incredible deal on this. And then the 2 mattresses that she talked about.
And we got this great deal. We split it with our son. He paid for 2 seats and we paid for 3. And the way it worked out. But beyond that, I've just kind of kept my eyes open for fun deals. It's taken me time, but so it doesn't have to cost a lot to try to fix a place up. And the other thing is that when you find yourself in a position where you aren't paying for debt and interest all the time, and you are able to kind of, there's money that you are free to use because it doesn't have to go to take care of things. There is going to become a greater possibility and joy in being able to give.
Oh, yes.
And we don't want to go into that a whole lot. The Lord would like us to maintain, you don't want your left hand to know what your right hand is doing. But I just want to tell you, one of the great joys of having more income available because our expenses are low is the joy of knowing that, we are in a position to be able to, help somebody else. And so I had one comment where somebody said, how can you guys be so excited about the fact that you now have a house in Florida? There's people in New York and California that can't afford a home at all. And of course, that's a little bit like either eat your dinner or don't eat your dinner, because there's kids in China that are starving. I'm not really sure how I'm going to directly help.
It's Africa.
Okay, Africa. I just don't exactly know what I could do to help somebody get a house in California or New York. But there is an ability, once you don't have to pay out to interest, and once you've kept your expenses really low, there can be a great joy in knowing that you're able to give. And I want to encourage people to find that joy in giving and to become what the Bible calls a cheerful giver. Yeah. So we just wanted to address some questions that people have had, things that they've said and comments. And I'm grateful, honestly, that this place is available so that I can come down when it gets cold. And actually coming down to a house is a whole lot simpler than packing up a big RV and getting everything ready to go and making the trip down. We just come down and open the door, and
now that we've got everything we need in the house, including we're working on a whole second set of clothing. We're not there yet.
Yeah, no, we're doing very slowly on that.
So the goal is that when we're ready to come down to Florida, we don't even have to pack anything, even any clothes. We just wear the clothes that we're wearing, and when we get here, we're good to go.
And we don't get fancy, expensive clothes. You can sort of tell by looking at us. Yeah. We have to pack up the computer, and that should be just...
Yeah, the computer and the camera equipment, and that's about it.
That's probably about it, yeah.
Toothbrush.
Yeah. I have a toothbrush down here.
Yeah, you do.
Anyway, if we ever needed to, right now we don't really need to, but if we ever needed to, one or the other of the houses could be rented out or Airbnb'd, and so we know it's available if we need it. Mm-hmm. And at some point we may need it, I also love feeling like that we're looking at a chance of leaving somewhat of a legacy for the kids. Mm-hmm. And we'll see what happens in the world, what happens with the Lord and his return. But goodness, when that all starts happening, who gives a rip about houses or anything like that? It's going to be a whole different thing. Right. So, alrighty.
So I hope that answers the question of, you guys aren't living simple. Yes, we are, and it's because we live simple that we can afford a second house. And most Floridians can't afford housing. Well, let me suggest that maybe it's because they're using a lot of debt, they're not managing their money the way they should, and they're not living debt-free.
Or honestly, they may just not have enough income because where a lot of the population is in this state, it's expensive. So we
Yeah,
understand.
and like I said from the beginning, we're not talking about low-income people here, and
Right.
I feel for you. I understand that because
And
we've been there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we're talking about people with an average income. And believe me, there are millions of people in Florida with an average income that can't afford to live because they're up to here in debt. So, can you do what we've done? Probably. Like I said, not if you're real low income, but if you have an average
understand.
income, you can do what we have done. And I urge you or suggest to you that you go watch my debt elimination seminar. That'll get you well on your way. And we have testimonials from many of you who have followed it or are following it and having great progress with getting out of debt.
So
and that makes me
wonderful.
so happy. It makes me so excited every time I hear something like that. If you're one of those that is following that and getting some success with debt freedom, please let us know in the comments. I would love to celebrate that with you.
Yes, yes. And also, things take time. We told you we were in a pretty bad hole when the crash happened. I'm not saying by the next year we were fine. It took time, and it took living in that little tiny house for like 5+ years before we needed to get a place for Bill's dad. And by then we were kind of able to pay off the mortgage, on the little house that we got down up in Virginia. So yes, we realized things take time, and we certainly didn't come out of that deep hole right away.
Right.
But by learning the hard way and sticking to our guns and finding out how important this is, we have slowly gotten to the point where now, yes, we have been able to invest. I'm still kind of awestruck, to tell the truth. I remember what it was like when I had a hard time paying for anything. So,
And it's not because we're making more money, it's because we learned how to properly manage the money that we earn.
right. We're making money again, but we were making money before too,
Right.
before the crash, and
Right.
not using it nearly as carefully. Yeah.
So that's it. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Yeah. Live simple.
Which means living debt free.
For us anyway,
And
yes.
then live free from debt, free from stress of how am I going to make
Yes.
this next mortgage payment.
How can I pay for this? And living the freedom of knowing, you know what, if I save for a little while, I'm going to be able to make a little trip, something I've always dreamed of doing. Just freedom in that the income you have is more available for things that would make you happy.
Right.
Also, part of that is that life does not consist of possessions. I know we own 2 houses, but there's reasons for that. But life does not consist of possessions, especially fancy ones. Life consists of relationships and experiences. And that's where I'm glad we can put our emphasis. Yeah. Anyway, live simple, live free.
We appreciate every one of you.
Yes, oh, so much. We love you guys.
And we wish the best for you. We wish debt freedom for you as well.
Yeah. All righty. Well, when you ask us to pray, we pray for you, and thank you for your prayers. And I'm gonna knock this whole breathing thing. You just watch the Lord. It's not me. It's gonna be Him. All right. Love you guys. We'll see you later. Bye bye.